I don't think I've ever talked about it just because I can't.
Harry's a friend, you know, and
David Beckham just helped ban Prince Harry and Meghan Markle from the FIFA 2026 World Cup, and William is backing him. After years of betrayal, leaked stories, and that cancelled meeting in Australia, football royalty chose sides, and the Sussexes got completely shut out. But what really happened behind closed doors will shock you.
That is why Prince Harry, a man who would have been expected to be one of the faces of the FIFA World Cup being held in the United States of America, has been shut out.
The FIFA World Cup 2026 is happening right in America, Harry's own backyard, his new home turf. This was supposed to be his moment, the biggest sporting event on the planet, landing in the country where he reinvented himself as a Hollywood royal.
Prince Harry, for reasons best known to Time magazine, has been named in the 100 most influential people in sport list.
The man who walked away from the firm, crossed the ocean, and tried to build a new empire in California finally had the world spotlight coming straight to him.
So Harry was friendly with the Beckhams, and then Meghan and Harry had a falling out with the Beckhams. They alleged that Victoria and David were leaking information about them. They're so paranoid about it.
5 years ago, everyone would have bet Harry would be front and center. Remember the 2012 Olympics, the Invictus Games? Harry was the royal who actually showed up at major sporting events and owned the room.
It is a big event, and look, I know the FIFA World Cup is not a British event, of course it's not, but it is being held in America, and
But now, he's completely shut out. No invite, no seat, not even a courtesy appearance. This is a deliberate choice.
Harry has not been invited to the FIFA World Cup final. And insiders tell the reason is simple: David Beckham.
Football has picked its prince, and that prince is David Beckham. Beckham is set to be one of the biggest faces of the entire World Cup, global ambassador, living legend.
David Beckham, and I think, you know, he is the king of football and all the rest of it. So it was a very rude thing to do.
The man who captained England, played in multiple World Cups, and built Inter Miami into a powerhouse. When the World Cup came to America, it came straight into Beckham's world.
It carries extra sting because Harry and Meghan Markle were once close friends with David and Victoria Beckham.
Insiders aren't even pretending anymore. If football has to choose between Beckham and Harry, it's not even close. Beckham is football royalty. Harry, he's yesterday's news.
Massive event, and they don't want Harry there. But also, too, the Met Ball didn't want Harry. Harry's time of being invited to every high-profile event, it's over.
And that fall from being on every VIP list to being completely erased from the biggest event in his own country, that's brutal. But to understand how we got here, we have to go back to a friendship that was once rock solid until it wasn't. David and Victoria Beckham were not casual acquaintances of the Sussex household. They were not the kind of celebrity couple who gets a courtesy invite and sits somewhere near the back. At Harry and Meghan's wedding in May 2018, David and Victoria Beckham sat in the front row.
David never forgave it. The accusation destroyed the trust. Once that happened, there was no coming back. Since then, the Beckhams have moved firmly into Prince William's circle.
Honored guests, close friends. That matters because the Beckhams are notoriously selective about who they let in. David has spent decades in the public eye and has kept his private circle remarkably tight. Victoria, even more so. Being genuinely welcomed into their world is not something that happens by accident or by celebrity proximity alone.
Being held in America, and the UK has this natural affinity with football. Just a few years ago, you would absolutely have imagined that Harry would be at the heart of an event like that, just like in the past he was at the heart of, for example, the London 2012 Olympics.
The Sussexes had that. They had a real friendship with two of the most famous people on the planet. In the early days of the Sussex departure from the royal family, the assumption in many quarters was that the Beckhams would follow them into their new world, that they would remain close. That assumption was wrong.
And I think David is someone who remembers people who are extremely rude to them for no good reason.
And the reason it was wrong is a decision that the Sussex operation made. Because at some point, Someone in the Harry and Meghan's world looked at all the press coverage swirling around them and decided they needed someone to blame, and the name they landed on was David and Victoria Beckham. The Sussex operation accused the Beckhams of leaking stories to the British press.
The idea that it was David and Victoria Beckham on the phone giving me those stories, Angela, is fanciful.
The response from David Beckham was absolute. Word is he never forgave it. The accusation destroyed the trust between them completely, and once that happened, there was no road back. Now, step back and look at this clearly. At the time this accusation was made, Harry and Meghan were generating an extraordinary volume of press coverage from an extraordinary number of directions simultaneously. Stories were emerging from inside the palace, from former associates across multiple decades, from their own camp, from the general media apparatus that surrounds any public figure operating at that level of controversy.
Appalling behaviour. And the fact that they lashed out and blamed Victoria and David Beckham was embarrassing, and it backfired on them so badly.
The idea that this volume of coverage was being orchestrated by one specific couple, a couple who actively avoid press intrusion, who have spent years keeping their own family out of the tabloids, who had no motive whatsoever to generate negative coverage of people they called friends, does not survive basic scrutiny. The Beckhams were not running a briefing operation. They were being blamed for a problem that had dozens of sources, none of which were them. David Beckham knew that. He knew it with certainty, and the specific kind of anger that comes from being accused of something you know with absolute clarity you did not do.
Thing to say about somebody, isn't it, really, without any real good evidence.
Well, if it's not true, and it wasn't.
It compounds, it calcifies, it becomes the lens through which everything that follows gets interpreted. But just when there was a real chance to fix it, Harry gave Beckham one final crystal clear answer about how much the friendship was actually worth to him. David Beckham traveled to Australia. He made the trip specifically to attend a football event and to see Harry, to have the conversation in person, to give the friendship a genuine chance despite the accusation that was already straining it. Harry was there. He was preparing to be associated with a major football match. David arrived, and Harry said he didn't have time to see him. He was too busy.
I was absolutely furious with him because there was a footballer who was going to play it and all that, and it was taking place in Australia. David agreed that he would go and be with Harry and they would talk about it and decide what to do. Harry decided not to go.
David Beckham traveled all the way to Australia, and Harry could not find a single moment to speak to him. Royal biographer Angela Levin described what happened with characteristic directness. David went all that way. Harry said he had no time, and David had to make the entire journey home without a single word having passed between them. Think about what those two moments together communicated. The accusation said, "You betrayed me." The no-show in Australia said, "And I don't value this enough to even have the conversation about it."
They were upset with Victoria Beckham because she didn't give Meghan the right clothes, and she'd also said that they'd been leaked to the people. And
Angela Levin put it plainly. David is someone who remembers people who are extremely rude to them for no good reason, particularly if they've gone all that way to Australia. He remembered. Of course he remembered. But as Harry kept burning bridges, Beckham was busy building them. Here's the part that most of the coverage has glossed over. While the Sussex commercial operation was cycling through Netflix deals and Spotify contracts and publishing arrangements that didn't renew, David and Victoria Beckham were quietly and consistently moving deeper into the palace's orbit. The Beckhams attended a Buckingham Palace state banquet. They joined King Charles and Queen Camilla for a black-tie dinner at Highgrove, the king's private country home. David became an ambassador for the King's Foundation. Princess Catherine began wearing Victoria Beckham designs regularly and in high-profile settings. And then, in November 2025, it became official. David Beckham was knighted by King Charles III in a ceremony at Windsor Castle. He is now Sir David Beckham. Victoria is now Lady Beckham. The honor was given for his services to sport and charity. David said something worth paying close attention to. "I've always said how important the monarchy is to my family. I'm lucky enough to have traveled around the world, and all people want to talk to me about is our monarchy. It makes me proud." Read those words again. The man that Harry and Meghan accused of betraying them, the man Harry couldn't find time to see in Australia, was standing in Windsor Castle receiving a knighthood from the king. While Harry was positioning himself as someone who had outgrown the institution, Beckham was being formally welcomed into its highest honors.
It's reporting from Rob Shooter. Prince Harry has not been invited to the FIFA World Cup final.
The realignment is complete. It has been for some time, and now the World Cup has given it the most prominent single expression yet. Beckham as the face of the biggest sporting event in the world, Harry not present. The Beckhams chose the palace, and the palace very clearly chose them back. But it's not just the World Cup. This is a pattern.
Just days before the World Cup exclusion made headlines, it was confirmed that Harry had not been invited to Peter Phillips' wedding. Peter Phillips is Princess Anne's son, Harry's own cousin. The wedding took place on the 6th of June 2026 at All Saints Church in Gloucestershire, attended by King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William, and Princess Catherine. Insiders called it the royal wedding of the year.
Let's start with Meghan and Harry because they've been snubbed by their family, and not even the good part of the family, not the main part of the family.
Harry was not there. Word is that Peter and Harry had simply not spoken for several years, a natural cooling off that became, in the end, a closed door. The day needed to be about Peter and Harriet, not about Harry. Those close to the situation made clear they felt that Harry and Meghan's presence would have made the occasion entirely about them, overshadowing the couple whose day it actually was. Being left off a cousin's wedding guest list is not the same as being excluded from a formal royal occasion. It is personal. Cousins who grew up alongside each other in the same family, and personal cuts differently than protocol. Here is what connects both stories. Peter Phillips is fiercely close to William, loyal and protective of the Prince of Wales in a way that has defined where his allegiances sit. And William himself may yet appear in America if England progress deep into the tournament. Word is he would attend if the team reach a quarterfinal, a semifinal, potentially a final, but would not travel for a group stage match. If England go deep, William could be in America, in Harry's country. At the event Harry is locked out of, welcomed in a way that Harry simply is not. Two major events in the same week. Harry excluded from both, William present at both. That is a settled pattern. But the warning signs were there long before the World Cup or the wedding snub. This week marked the 5-year anniversary of Meghan's children's book, The Bench, and it perfectly previewed the Sussex Empire's collapse. Published in 2021 at the peak of their fame with a massive Penguin Random House deal, it sold just 3,212 copies in its first week in the UK and never charted. The book preached tender father-son bonds, while Meghan's own father remained publicly estranged.
Seeing the special bond between father and son through a mother's eye. Now, how do you know what a father feels when you're not doing anything about it except sort of blinking?
The contradiction was glaring. 5 years later, 2 of the 4 promised books remain undelivered. Netflix restructured, Spotify ended, as ever traffic is tanking. The Bench wasn't a fluke, it was the preview. But while the Sussex Empire was quietly crumbling, football and the rest of the world had already chosen its side. The Beckhams are now Sir David and Lady Beckham. Harry, meanwhile, is watching the biggest sporting event in the world in his own country from the outside. And if England go deep into the tournament, William could land in America, welcomed into the very spaces Harry cannot access. That is the answer. Some doors close slowly. This one has been closing since Australia. Do you think Harry was deliberately pushed out, or did he make choices that made this outcome inevitable? Tell me in the comments.